Welcome to the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen, covering the week that was in professional wrestling. And welcome once again to another rousing rendition of the Juice Box. I am Juice Springsteen. We'll get right to the meat of the episode here in just a moment, as we always do here on this Friday the 15th. But next month it will be a Friday the 13th, which I cannot wait for. But that's a random sidebar. Welcome to the Juice Box. I am Juice Springsteen at JuicySteen on Twitter. JuicySteen.podbean.com, Apple Podcasts on iTunes, rate it, review it, 5 straws. Also, Google Podcasts, you can find this show. And as always, on Instagram, Juicy Wrestling Closet, which, if you've been following that account, and I guess my Twitter account, but either way, you would have seen what I will discuss in a little bit here. I finally, somehow, after, 30 years old, have met quite a few wrestlers in the past. Hope to meet more as life moves on. But I finally got to meet the legend, the greatest of all time, the one, the only, Ric Flair. Wow, what a interesting way that it happened, but I was here for it. It was very old school. The local grocery store, Giant Eagle. There had been 3 separate Giant Eagles in the Pittsburgh area that Ric Flair was going towards and showing up for meet and greets if you purchased his new energy drink, Woo Energy, which is pretty cool. He did the same thing in Cleveland and in Columbus, and Pittsburgh was his last of the stops. So I bought the energy drink. I stood in line. I received a free signed energy drink for, I think, primarily for the shirt that I was wearing, which was the Super Brawl 4 shirt featuring Flair and Vader on the front. Highly recommend you watch their Starrcade 93 match and then the Super Brawl 4 match to really gauge how awesome Vader and Flair really were as adversaries. I wish they would have had more matches together, but I thought that those 2 matches in particular were fantastic. But so I got a signed can. I got in line, hung out with a bunch of wrestling fans, and then got to go in the actual store. And Ric Flair was there in his glory, standing there dancing with certain people. People came up with figures and belts and some of his copies of his book and, random items to potentially get signed. But I just wanted the photo op, and I did. I shook his hand, got the photo op, and it was quite the moment for me. I relayed this to a lot of people that I work with and a lot of people that were in line. The guys from that Hogan and Flair era just aren't around anymore. They've passed away. You still have, Sting, who's actively still wrestling. Lex Luger, who, he is confined to a wheelchair, but he's up there in age. Good spirits. Bret Hart's still around. Flair, Hogan, Sergeant Slaughter, Steamboat. There's a few, but it just really is wild to me that these guys who lived through the 70s and 80s and 90s of wrestling with such a hard schedule, that these guys are still around here in 2023 doing what they love to do, which is still meet the fans and give the fans what they want, which is solid meet and greet. I thought some people I had heard were complaining like, oh, you only see him and talk to him for maybe 30 seconds. That's 30 more seconds than I've ever had with him in my life, so I'd much rather at least have it, get the photo op, and got to say I met Ric Flair. So hell of a week for me. in that regard. So yeah, that's up on my Instagram at Juicy Wrestling Closet. It's also on my Twitter page at Juicy Steen. But outside of that, we're going to delve a little bit into AEW, a little bit into WWE, but I do have a lot more news items to share instead of the normal, what happened on Raw, SmackDown, and Dynamite, Collision, what have you. There just isn't too much going on at the moment. Now, I will discuss some of the stuff that happened on all of those shows, but I have more interesting news-related items that I'd like to touch on. So let's just get into the shows first, and then we'll kind of finish up with the rest of it. I would like to say that there will be a programming update, I believe, in the next couple of weeks. I really don't want to pin down exactly when it will air, but I do plan on the third installment of Triple Threat Theater with Josh Cross and Donnie. I got some topics we're going to discuss, including CM Punk, some Hall of Fame stuff, and potentially some fantasy booking of some previous cards that I will announce, to those guys, and we'll have it kind of set up as we record that episode. But hopefully that'll come out later this month. We'll see. I'd like to do one of those shows every quarter if possible, but with time constraints and busy schedules with myself and everybody pretty much that I am friends with and such, that if the times line up, great, we'll get it out at the end of the month. If not, it'll come out in October, but we will definitely have Triple Threat Theater Volume 3. So yeah, but let's get into the Raw and AEW side of things here. Quick glance over Raw. We still don't have any matches announced for Fastlane, although we're going to be, I think we're within a month now of that PLE happening. We got some animosity between Jey Uso and Kevin Owens. We also had, we had Gunther celebrating his longest reign of the Intercontinental Championship. He officially passed Honky Tonk Man last week, and I couldn't be happier that Gunther is the man. He is a great ambassador for the company. He is a wonderful performer. He's great outside of the ring as well. But hell of an in-ring performer. And I still think Chad Gable is the guy to take the title off of him, whether that's at Fastlane. And if it does happen at Fastlane, give me a 30-minute Iron Man match, or give me a 2 out of 3 falls. Give me something to really showcase Chad Gable and Gunther. But the celebration happened. And it looks like we're going to be moving forward with this Chad Gable thing. So excited for that. And I'm also excited for Gunther to eventually move away from the IC title. Whether that's close to Rumble or not, I do believe he will be the man to eventually take the World Heavyweight title. Whether that's from Seth Rollins or from somebody else who takes it from Seth Rollins, I do think Gunther is ready for a World Heavyweight Championship reign. So that'll be fun if that does come to fruition, as I hope it does. Drew McIntyre still having problems with the New Day. Riddle might come back next week. I don't know what to think about all that. I'm really just missing Randy Orton. I don't know. I just miss Randy Orton and the momentum he gives other talent in the locker room in general. So he is sorely missed. Hopefully he will come back. Hopefully he can come back and really get involved back in the WWE realm. So we'll see about that. And as well, probably the biggest news coming from Raw this week, Nia Jax. That's right. Nia Jax attacked Rhea Ripley. Attacked Raquel Rodriguez. It's been quite a long time since we've seen Nia Jax, and I don't know what they're planning, but to be fair, and it's not an indictment on me yawning there. I am recording this later on Thursday. But Nia Jax and Rhea Ripley, I think, could be a hell of a match. What the kids would call a banger. Because Nia can be a little stiff in there. And I think Rhea Ripley is more than capable of taking those licks and getting back up and really having a solid, strong, physical match with Nia Jax. So hopefully we see that maybe at Fastlane. Maybe we see something in Survivor Series, which will be the next PLE after Fastlane in Indianapolis. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, Nia Jax looked in great shape and seems to be ready to get ready for a title shot at some point. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's just interesting. This time of year really is always it's just like a dull period. Now I know Payback was a fun show, but now you have a month between now and Fastlane, and every episode of Raw is going to be competing against Monday Night Football now. Like Payback was the last show before football started. So now that you have that not helping, and it's just going to be really difficult for WWE to really gain momentum that they normally would throughout the year whenever they have the competition of football at hand. But, they've done it before, and I'm sure they'll be able to get through the doldrums of the fall for success and ratings. So we'll see. I'll be tuning into Raw. I'll be tuning into Monday Night Football. I am not the issue of the fan that they are trying to reach. But yeah, we'll see what happens with SmackDown this week. I know we do get Cena, I believe, on the Grayson Waller effect, if I'm not mistaken. So that'll be fun for sure. Looking forward to seeing what Grayson Waller has to say. He's going to be a part of a little, not a segment, but just a little piece of business I'd like to discuss at the end of the show. I'm going to go over a couple of the guys that are in WWE right now that they're not mid-card guys. They're top of the level guys on the card. It's just, are they going to push over the boundary? Are they going to reach and bust through that glass ceiling? Are they going to make that next step? What is their ceiling? I want to talk about a couple of those guys and where I think they stand towards the end of the show. I'm also going to discuss the PWI 500, the top 10. I'd like to discuss that little controversial piece of business as well. But before we do that, let's go into the AEW portion of the recap. We had Samoa Joe winning the tournament final of the Grand Slam World Title Tournament. He will be facing MJF, who cut an amazing MJF / Steiner math promo backstage. Unbelievable. Perfect execution. Couldn't have done it better myself. We had Don Callis and Takeshita revealing that Kota Ibushi is the next man to be taken out by Takeshita. That's Kenny Omega's 1A friend outside of the Elite. They are the Golden Lovers. So we'll see what that really has in tow. Will Kenny try to save him? Will Kenny get involved? Will there be a tag? Kind of tough to see and figure out at the moment. Jon Moxley, big win against Big Bill. Physical match. Mox hard way busted open. Thought it was a fun match. Big Bill's really improved and impressed me since his work in WWE. I think he's done a lot better work over the last couple of months. He looks in great shape, massive stature, massive specimen, really imposing figure. And I do see some promise for Big Bill. I don't know what that really means long term, but just as a guy that's on the roster and that's on the shows every week, I do think he's got a spot to really impress. So I like seeing Big Bill on the shows every week. Same with Prince Nana and Swerve Strickland, which it is confirmed we are getting Hangman Adam Page versus Swerve Strickland at the October 1st Wrestle Dream event from Seattle, which will be a fun match for sure. And I think it'll be a hell of a pay-per-view, considering we also have Zack Sabre Jr. and Bryan Danielson in a match. My God. So, looking forward to that show. That'll be the 1st of October, which is a Sunday night. Although I might not be buying that pay-per-view. We'll have to see. I might be. I think I might be busy that night. We'll talk about that in the future. But I might have a prior commitment. I'm really not sure. We got a very interesting promo from Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara, who are kind of doing a similar scenario and storyline to the MJF Adam Cole story, but this story has been going on for over 4 years now. It's dated back to the beginning of Dynamite, the beginning of AEW, and they're gonna have a we're friends, but I have to beat you. Sammy said I have to beat you to get out of the shadow of you. And I really like that. And I enjoyed that Chris Jericho was just like, yeah, you know what? You do. And kind of said, hey, let's do this thing. Let's see what you got, kid. And that'll be next week. Next Wednesday should be fun. Grand Slam from Arthur Ashe Stadium in New York. I think that should be a hell of a show. It's the third time they're doing the Grand Slam Dynamite. Always a fun atmosphere, great crowds. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I thought the show was good. We also had Tony Storm winning the Fatal 4-Way, who will, next week on Grand Slam, is going to face Saraya for the title. Doubt the title will change hands, but we'll see what happens. We'll have the full report of what happened at Grand Slam next week as well. Hangman Adam Page defeated Brian Cage in their third match, one-on-one, which was pretty highly contested. But yeah, Darby Allin, Nick Wayne versus 2.0. And it definitely looks like we're getting Darby and Sting versus Christian and Luchasaurus at Grand Slam next week, which will also be should be a fun match. Sting getting even more big stages to perform on. Can't wait to see what that entails as Grand Slam is next week. But as I said, yeah, Samoa Joe wins. It's Samoa Joe versus MJF. And Joe said he's going to take everything from MJF. So I got a feeling we're going to see some really dastardly behavior from Samoa Joe as we near Grand Slam. And at Grand Slam, where MJF is going to be an incredibly over face, what that is going to mean is going to be something to behold. Like what really, what really is going to happen in regards to, what does MJF have that is going to be taken away by Samoa Joe? Does he mean his career? Does he mean his family that could be in attendance because it's, New York and he's a Long Island guy? That remains to be seen, but it's set up as a pretty solid feud, so I'm really looking forward to it. I don't anticipate Samoa Joe winning, of course, but I do suspect Adam Cole could get involved and Roddy Strong could get involved, so let's see. Let's see what happens with those. those guys. So, yeah, pretty tame Raw, pretty tame Dynamite. Like I said, SmackDown should be fun this week with Cena. And I do believe he's on the Grayson Waller effect, so that'll be a good show as always. And like I said, Grand Slam next Wednesday. Another Raw next week. I think we're about 3 Raws away still from Fastlane, so nothing even set up yet. So we're really in the infant stages. So as the shows progress on in the fall, with not much substance, that's when you're going to see a lull in the juice box. Not that I'm not going to record an episode every week, but there's really not that much content. Luckily, there is some news and notes on the back end of this episode that might pad out a couple topics that I could discuss that aren't necessarily current storylines. Because the bread and butter of WWE, is January to April. And even then, from April to August, when WrestleMania and SummerSlam start and end, that really entails everything. But from August, from September to December, it's really difficult for WWE to really get some traction. But AEW kind of, they got Grand Slam. Then in a couple weeks, they got Wrestle Dream in October. And then by the next month, they've got Full Gear. So they really do kind of keep it up to where they have certain events, certain days, certain times of the year. They kind of keep going. Don't want to lose the momentum. I'm not saying WWE is losing the momentum, but it's more of there's more time not being spent on the storylines whenever there's so much time in between shows, or when, let's face it, football really takes over once September hits, and it's been that way for a while. Luckily, there are no current NFL games happening on a Wednesday night. Otherwise, Dynamite might be in some trouble. But yeah, the fall is a lull time for wrestling. So I'm here for it, though. The Juice Box will be here every single week, regardless. Like I said, we got Triple Threat Theater coming up. We got the Fastlane predictions coming up in a couple of weeks. We might have some other interesting types of episodes. I got some ideas cooking. Got some interviews I'd like to do down the line. Got a lot of hope and some ideas for the show just in general. So as time goes by and as we get to some doldrums, as it were, for wrestling, the Juice Box will always be here for you, the fans, because this really is, at the end of the day, a fan-centric show. I am a fan. I just happen to have a podcast. I decided this. Everybody has a podcast nowadays, especially in the wrestling realm. There's thousands upon thousands of shows. But I like to think I bring some sort of a differential to that in regards to my background. I do legitimately have a journalism degree, so I can talk about things pretty unbiased. I have opinions, of course, but I really can look at the whole scope of everything and not really just say things are bad or things are great or be a shill. I really can be honest about pretty much everything, no matter what. So, yeah, Juice Box is still kicking here. Let's get into the fourth quarter here of what I'd like to discuss. We have a couple of pretty sizable notes. It's not gonna take up too much time. Like I said, this is gonna be probably one of the more tame times of the year in regards to this particular show. But in regards to what I'm about to discuss, we might have a lengthier discussion in the next couple of weeks. First, it's rumored that Jade Cargill is potentially having her AEW contract up as soon as this week. And it seems as if that might be the case. She has a match with Chris Statlander this week, and there won't be any spoilers on the Juice Box, so I will refrain from such, but it were to appear that Jade Cargill might be heading up north to Stamford. And if that happens, first of all, I think AEW did a fine job of introducing Jade, giving her that streak, really pushing her to the top with the TBS title, making that title mean something, giving it some lineage and some strength. And really, Jade, and I don't mean just from her She-Hulk gear, but she was pretty green coming into AEW. But every match I saw her pull out a different move or a different nuance to a move or a different way to sell, and these little things that like you learn as you become a wrestler, but these are things she was applying and learning not on the fly, but it's like she was understanding the correction that needed to be made match to match and was really really improving herself as has gone on. And I'm just looking forward to seeing if the WWE machine gets a hold of Jade Cargill, because I think she is absolutely a potential star in the making, and I would love to see her against, hate her or love her, I'd love to see her against Charlotte. I'd love to see her against Bianca Belair, Becky, Rhea Ripley. I think Jade needs some time before she takes on a lot of that talent, but put her in NXT maybe. Is that a demotion? But I mean, Tiffany Stratton, who just I guess I forgot to mention that Becky Lynch wins the NXT Women's title on NXT. Some will say that's a demotion for Becky because she's arguably one of the hottest talents, in WWE on the women's side. Really, just overall. And for her to go to NXT and win the NXT title, Dom is the champion down there, but he's a younger guy. He's really hasn't established himself too deep on the main roster. I know he's got the most heat, as it were, but I wouldn't say that he's necessarily a veteran by any stretch of the imagination. But Becky Lynch goes down there, wins the NXT title off of Tiffany Stratton. Tiffany Stratton seems to be coming up at any time as well, so give me Tiffany Stratton and Jade Cargill if that were to be the case. But I also just wonder, the ratings are going to skyrocket with Becky in NXT, so I can't really hate on that. It's a good way to spread out your roster. AEW could really learn something from that, but they really only have two solid main shows right now. I really don't consider Rampage much of a third show. It happens, and certain things move forward because of that show, but I would say Collision and Dynamite are your bread and butter. So yeah, Jade Cargill potentially might be going to WWE. We'll follow up with that soon. And speaking of just, people coming and going from WWE, I'm recording this it's September 14th, almost 11 p.m. By this time, when you're listening to this, or tomorrow night, Friday night, or this weekend, there is a heavy rumor that there will be a significant amount of layoffs and cuts from WWE. Now, I know this is normally your spring cleaning type deal where guys and girls are cut, and backstage guys and girls are cut, producers and what have you, certain talent. Some are notified, some aren't notified until way late, and garbage bags full of your gear are sent. And it's a messy time. It's a very messy time. But that along with the recent merging, Tuesday was the official merge of WWE and UFC with Endeavor, now called the TKO Enterprise, I believe, or it's just TKO in general. So TKO is now the merged WWE and UFC. And they had the stock exchange where they unveiled that with Daniel Cormier was there. Triple H, of course, was there. Vince McMahon with a mustache was there. It's a very bizarre sight, but mustaches are in. So that is, I guess, not too crazy to think that Vince would try to stick with the trends now that he has more than 0 hours to focus on things other than wrestling. I say that, yet it does seem that Vince has his hands all over the Raw shows the last few weeks. So maybe he's still in. We really don't know. But with all that, with the merger, it's going to be interesting to see who, the company lays off, who they think is worth it, who they think can have a lengthy career with them now with this new merge. Another interesting portion of this was the discussion of the UFC and WWE having sort of all-star weekends. Now, this is what I don't like. Because UFC and WWE were separate entities for so long, and UFC really capitalized and was big on the Saturday night pay-per-view model, and then comes the pandemic and things change, and an AEW comes along and they start having Saturday night pay-per-views outside of your Labor Day and Memorial Day weekends. We now are, the rumor is that UFC they will want a all-star weekend for the UFC and WWE where you get a Saturday night UFC show. Let's just say it's in Vegas, right? In Vegas, and then the next night, Sunday night, you would see the WWE run a PLE in Vegas, to where you get both entities running the same city for two massive shows, all under the same banner, so that like they're promoting it all. There really is no competition, and I enjoy the concept of having all the fans all at once not every weekend, but some weekends you really could pull that off. What I don't like is that if that were to take place, Sunday night is where you're going to have WWE shows. Unless it's Memorial Day or Labor Day, I am not a fan of Sunday night pay-per-views or PLEs, purely for the fact that you got to get up the next day for work, and that goes for a lot of the people, at least in the United States. Those in the United Kingdom probably won't stay up to watch said shows because they start well into the early morning hours on Monday morning for those folks. So if you do it on a Saturday night, they can stay up as it is the weekend. But I don't know. I'm curious to see. And in that same realm, we'll get into this as well now. Royal Rumble 2024 is going to take place at the Tropicana Field, which did it? I'm not sure if it hosted a Royal Rumble previously. I'm trying to think here, but so Tampa, oh, you know what? That's what I was thinking of. I'm sorry, I just did some research. Tropicana Field is where they did do some early Thunderdome stuff from, was it December of 2020 until I think the beginning of the Tampa Bay Rays season. Then that's when they stopped having Thunderdome at Tropicana Field. But I forgot about Tropicana Field hosting the Thunderdome. But yeah, so Tropicana held that, but they're gonna host the Royal Rumble happening. I'm sorry, I'm looking at all the other things. Hosting the 2024 Royal Rumble. It did host the 2021 Royal Rumble, but of course there was no fans. Or there might have been some fans for that. But yeah, the Tropicana Field getting this thing in Tampa. So I'm curious as if they're going to put, a UFC show that weekend. What are they going to do there? So I'm really curious as to how they want to line up UFC shows and such as we get closer to having the dual shows, and we see the as we see the schedules line up. What's going on, what's going to be happening on these certain nights in the future, what UFC show, are we going to see the UFC schedule first? Are we going to see, oh wow, they're in Columbus, Ohio in 3 months. Does that mean WWE's going to run the same city that weekend? I'm just curious as to that dynamic. But it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, the Royal Rumble 2024, January 27th, 2024. So that's still a Saturday night show, the night before my birthday. So as always, Royal Rumble right around my birthday. Always enjoyed that. Always a fun time of the year. That's when the road to WrestleMania kicks off, and the road to WrestleMania starts there, and it ends in Philly, April 6th, April 7th. Juice Springsteen will be in attendance, at least for right now, for night 2 only. Really hashing out details as we move forward, but I am planning on attending at least night 2 of WrestleMania 40 in Philly. You heard it here first on the Juice Box, but yeah, it's been kind of coming along. I'm going with a couple of buddies that one has never been to. They both have never been to WrestleMania. One was just at his first wrestling show this past March. I went to SmackDown with him, and he loved it. The other one, somehow, when he was 6 years old, was actually in attendance at King of the Ring, 1998 in Pittsburgh, when Mankind got thrown off the top of the Hell in a Cell by The Undertaker. He was at that show. I don't believe he really remembers that show, but it's quite honestly one of the top 5 played moments in WWE history and pro wrestling history. So those guys will be with me for night 2 of WrestleMania. Can't wait for that. I still might end up going to night 1. Again, none of those other details are really hashed out. I'm just happy that I do have tickets secured for night 2 as it is September. Normally those tickets go on sale in November. It's just nice to have them already, pretty much already set and squared away, paid for. So that I don't have to worry about stuff as we come closer to Christmas and months leading up to WrestleMania. So WrestleMania should be fun. Again, as we get closer to that, we'll talk more about what's going on and what those plans are and who else is going to possibly be there. And WrestleMania is always a fun time. So yeah, we'll get there when we get there. But yeah, we started talking about the Royal Rumble being at the Trop, so that's how we got there. Yeah, last little thing on the UFC WWE weekends. I guess it's just not feasible to have them the same night. I just hate that WWE would have to take the back seat and do Sunday nights. But like I said, if they wanted to do it Memorial Day or Labor Day weekend, that's great. But they'd also be competing directly with AEW. So maybe they think we could compete WWE versus AEW the same night if we have UFC the night before and it's all our same company. They might be thinking in that realm, which would be kind of interesting. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But last couple things, I'm going to talk about, let's do the PWI 500. I'm going to go 10-1 and what I think about the order of this list, at least the top 10. I'm not going to go over all 500, although Rev Ron Hunt, former CSR alum, did make it, I do believe, in the high 400s, which I do believe is higher than he was last year. So good for Rev Ron Hunt. He's won a few titles this year. He's had quite the year. I saw him in a cage match, which was awesome. So shout out to Rev Ron Hunt. But yeah, let's get into it. Number 10, Cody Rhodes. I have a problem with this. I think his spot should be swapped with whoever's in number 5 spot, and we will get there. But just for clarification, the PWI 500 is the PWI Pro Wrestling Illustrated, which still is a magazine. It used to be the magazine for wrestling. Bill Apter, main writer and contributor to that magazine throughout the years. This is dating me here, but pre-internet, and then even with the internet, but pretty much pre-internet, PWI was like the only way to know what the hell was going on with wrestling. You would see, this happened. It was all in kayfabe, which is the best part. The whole magazine was in kayfabe, so it was just what you missed, what you could catch up on. The best part, and my dad could vouch for this, is that, which would be, you know what, I have thought about this. I think it'd be fun to get my dad on here at some point. I don't know if he'd ever want to sit down for an hour and talk about wrestling, but I think it'd be fun if I had some interesting topics to discuss. But he always would mention, and I agree, and I guess I subconsciously like this as well, but in the back of the magazine, there would always be the top 10s. It would be the rankings list, and you could see who's the top 10 in WWF, WCW, ECW, and then it was, Smoky Mountain, or TNA. Like, you would see these other companies, and maybe not TNA, that was a little early, but you would see these other companies of, who are these wrestlers, and you could only know about them through the magazine, and then maybe they show up in ECW. An independent guy shows up in ECW. Maybe they show up in WCW. Maybe they're in the WWF. And you find out about them early from the magazine, and then, you're ahead of the game. They're on TV, and you see them, and so this is a kayfabe list. It's all about what happened from July 1st of 2022 through June 1st of 2023. So that's what it encompasses. So I'll just go over it again. I'm going to give a little synopsis of what I thought about each guy. Cody Rhodes at 10. Hell of a year. He did not win the world title, though. And he had some struggles, but he did triumph over Brock Lesnar, although his final match against Lesnar was not a part of this list. So I see why he's 10, but pretty much every other metric would say that Cody should be a little higher. And I do think he should have been number 5 if you just swapped out who was in number 5 slot. Number 9, Josh Alexander, the walking weapon. Impact's highest ranking guy here. He's been a stalwart for Impact for a couple of years now. Hell of a wrestler, hell of a performer. Really love his intensity. Reminds me of a Kurt Angle, of course. Maybe not just because of the headgear and the wrestling background, but just the intensity, really. So I think he proved it to be a real strong contender there. 8, Orange Cassidy. Perfect ranking for him. For a guy that, his gimmick is literally doing nothing. He's had more title defenses, more incredible matches, more just stability and consistency each and every week defending the international title. So I love that spot for him. Okada at number 7. Now, as a New Japan guy, it's tough for me to really explain how highly he's been rated. Now, Will Ospreay was not in this top 10. I'd argue he right now could be the number 1 guy in the world overall outside of kayfabe, just in-ring ability straight up. But Okada really is still the ace, I think, of New Japan, so I see why he's 7. MJF, the Devil, the AEW World Champion right now. He's been doing some strong work, but again, a lot of his great work has come post June 1st, so of this year at least. So maybe he'll be even higher up next year, depending on what happens with his character. Number 5, Vikingo. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. But yeah, he incredible performer. I mainly a AAA guy, but he did wrestle. He's wrestled in the Independents, and he also wrestled in AEW. And damn it, did he perform well in AEW. However, though, due to this kayfabe nature of this list, and because I would say majority of the readers here are going to be focused on AEW and WWE, and Impact, I guess, to an extent. Although there is a massive audience for Lucha Libre, I would say Vikingo and Cody Rhodes should swap. Cody should be number 5. Vikingo should be 10. But that's their list. I'm not a part of PWI. I am just a part of the Juice Box. So when the Juice Box 500 comes out and I give all the straws to everybody, I can rank Cody Rhodes 5th. Number 4, Gunther. What else can you say? Longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time. The sky's the limit for this guy. He very well could be number 3, 2, or dare I say 1 by the next year, depending on how his year goes. It started off pretty strong now that we're, July onward. So I would love to see him rise through the ranks and potentially get to a top spot. But I think he has to perform well. I think he has to continuously rank up. I think he has to lose this IC title, but lose it in a great way, I'm sure. And then I've been saying it for a while. I think Gunther Grayson Waller, Randy Orton, and LA Knight would be your final four in the Royal Rumble. And dare I say, give the Royal Rumble win to a Gunther, and that might really elevate him to a status that we have not seen yet. Number 3, and damn it, all three of the top 3 are the Shield. Jon Moxley, number 3. He is AEW. He is the backbone. He's the guy you can rely on. He's the guy that never fumbles the ball. He's the guy that picks up the pieces every time CM Punk quits on the company, which has been a lot more than you'd ever want to imagine. He bleeds in every match, but he bleeds because he loves it, and that's his style. That's who he is. He's a hardcore guy, and not just like in the sense of chairs and what have you. He is just that type of individual that really wants to go as hard as possible for every single match, every single event that AEW puts on. So he is AEW through and through. I think he's the best signing that AEW's possibly had. And I mean, Jericho, Danielson, Adam Cole, CM Punk, all those guys. I think that Jon Moxley is the best AEW signing that they have done thus far. And he was one of the first ones. Number 2, Roman Reigns. This is interesting because number 1 is Seth Rollins. I'll just get that out right now. Roman Reigns, yes, I do believe he's had one hell of a year. However, after the end of 2022, the Bloodline story kind of tapered off. You did your Sami Zayn match, but then the story wasn't complete with Cody. And then the Usos lost, and the separation started to happen, and then you had Jimmy Flip and Jay Flip, and now it's getting stale a little bit. So I can see, and Roman's not on TV every week. Meanwhile, Seth has been on TV every week. And so the end of 2022, I wouldn't say was great, but beginning of 2023, great performance at Mania with Logan Paul. He wins this other World Heavyweight Championship now. He's the first world champion. He's holding another world title instead of just delegating to Roman being the only champion in the company. He's defended it on Raw. He's defended it on NXT. He's defended it all over and as many places as he possibly can to great fanfare and great matches. So Seth freaking Rollins is freaking number 1. And I will defend that. I do think it's a very narrow margin. But in this regard, I got to give it to Seth Rollins. So I think he's been the guy, and I think he'll continue to be quite the flag bearer for WWE as we move forward. But yeah, I don't think Roman at number 2 is anything to sneeze at. I mean, he's had a hell of a run the last 3 years. But yeah, I think Seth's had a better 2023 so far, just overall with storylines and what have you. Because again, this is a kayfabe list, not just match-based. And then the last little thing I'd like to finish off here with the juice box this week. I'm going to name 5 guys, and I'm going to kind of do a stocks up, stocks down, and what would I think, just real quick. Dominic Mysterio. I think he's one of the best heels in the business right now. I think his stock is incredibly going up, and I think that he could become a world champion in the future. At the same time, I think it takes one moment of him doing the right thing, and the fans will be back on his side. Austin Theory. What a fall from grace. A John Cena WrestleMania match, and now he's relegated to losing a United States title match on a PLE. That being said, I still think there's value in him. I don't know what it'll take, but I do think he has it. I could see him winning... I could see him winning a world title, but I think it could be a transitional type thing. But that's really all I have, because the real talent here, the real guy that I think could push up forward and win that world title is Grayson Waller. I think he's one of the best on the mic right now in all of wrestling. It's him, it's MJF. It's very few that can hold a mic and really, really hold the audience in the palm of their hand. Great in ring as well. I love his elbow drop that he does. Kind of like a slam dunk deal. So I think the sky's the limit for him. I can definitely see him contending for a world title. And like I said, I think he's going to be in the Final Four of the Royal Rumble 2024. Damian Priest, who is Money in the Bank right now. I do think, though, that even though I still could see him being world champion at a point, I have a tough time thinking that it'll be as a Judgment Day member. I think because he's a part of the Judgment Day right now, and that he is tag champions currently with Finn Balor, that once he wants to become world champion with that Money in the Bank briefcase, he either doesn't win, and that's because of the Judgment Day kind of falling apart, or he wins the title and that causes friction. Whatever that may be, I just think that he's due for a title, but I think it could come at the expense of the group that he's in. And then finally, L.A. Knight. Yeah. The sky is the limit for this guy. I'm curious, though, can he sustain what he's doing for this long, or will fans start to turn on the derivatives and get upset that he's doing, his shtick or whatever his gimmick is? Or will he kind of turn it to another notch? Will he put a little nuance of his own self into the character and really push forward a uniqueness to his character instead of just being that guy who everybody thinks is ripping off Austin and Rock? I do believe there's something that he can gain and adding his own self to that character, which I think he'll do in the future. But I'm curious to see what his WrestleMania match looks like next year, because I think he really could do a lot. And I said it before, I've said it twice, and I said it again with Grayson Waller. LA Knight will be in the Final Four of the Rumble 2024 alongside Grayson Waller, Randy Orton, and Gunther. Hopefully that Randy Orton is able to do that. I think he could be a surprise in the Rumble. That's why I put him in there. But yeah, said this was a tame week. Said this was going to be nothing. Once again, well over 45 minutes. So another great episode of the Juice Box here for you guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Had a great time chatting with you guys this week. Like I said, not too much happening on Raw or Dynamite, but layoffs could be coming. UFC and WWE are under one umbrella now. The layoffs are going to be crazy because of that. The PWI 500 is a hugely divisive list, but it's all kayfabe and opinion, so who really cares? And of course, I met Ric Flair this week, so hell of a week for the Juice Box. But yeah, next week should be another great rendition. I'll have hopefully not too many layoffs from WWE to discuss. Hopefully a lot of fun from the Grand Slam show that AEW puts out next week will be discussed as well. All that and much, much more. As always, follow me on Twitter at JuicySteen, at Juicy Wrestling Closet on Instagram, and Apple Podcasts. Rate this 5 straws if you could on iTunes. Google Podcasts, you can also find the show. And yeah, this has been the Juice Box. I'm Juice Springsteen. Hopefully you guys enjoy this show, and I will see you guys next week for another episode of the Juice Box. That was the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. Make sure to subscribe to the Juice Box wherever you listen to podcasts.